Hey there. It's me, Eden. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and visit my Patreon page for early access, link in the comment, thanks. On Monday, I called Sharon to ask her about Carol's student project movie. As I expected, she agreed immediately. We talked about the project and then Sharon asked me if I had plans for New Year's Eve. She and Roy were having a party at their house again and she hoped that I could come. I told her that I'd love to and that I'd be there. I had only just replaced the receiver after saying goodbye to Sharon when Oliver called to invite me to another party. I told him that I couldn't because I had already accepted Sharon's offer. He said that he'd been invited to a party at the studio head's house and that he'd really like for me to come so that he didn't have to show up alone. There wouldn't be any other singles at the party and it would make him feel awkward to be there alone, especially at midnight. I didn't really want to go to a party where I wouldn't know anyone except for my date, but Oliver did everything short of begging me, and before he lowered himself to that point I gave in and agreed to go with him. Then I had to call Sharon back and tell her that I wouldn't be there after all. My next call was to make an appointment to have my hair done. Since this was a studio head's party, I knew that it would probably be very formal. I managed to get a last-minute appointment for late Wednesday afternoon. I lucked out due to a last-minute cancellation. With the arrangements made, I went to select my dress for the party. I bathed before going for my hair appointment, so when I returned home I was ready to begin getting dressed. I had gotten a manicure at the salon and the girl had repeatedly commented on the beautiful engagement ring, but I had avoided her questions about it, changing the subject every time she had gotten too inquisitive. I was ready at 7 o'clock when Oliver arrived. We still had more than an hour's drive to the party, so he had plenty of time. If traffic was bad, it could take almost 2 hours. Oliver was in the living room with Mom and Aunt Jess when I came down. He stood up as I entered the room and he whistled. "Wow, you look terrific, honey. Even more terrific than usual." "Thank you, you look great also. I like that tux." Oliver reached for me, but I backed away smiling. "No, you don't. No bear hugs. I just spent an hour getting my makeup just right. I don't want you messing me up." I held his hands and leaned forward to let him kiss me gently. After the kiss, Oliver held up my left hand as he looked into my eyes. "You're still wearing my ring?" Oliver said, half as a question and half in surprise. I looked down. "I haven't been able to get it off. It looks like I'll have to wear it for a few more days. It was so tight getting it on that the finger has to be completely normal before trying to remove it because I'll only get one try before damaging it again. We'd better get going." Traffic was moderately heavy and it took more than 2 hours to get to the party. As we pulled up to the house, I put on the opera-length gloves that I had brought with me. I was actually glad that the party was to be formal so that I had an excuse to wear them. I didn't want to spend the evening explaining the ring. The host and hostess greeted us warmly. I hadn't met them before, but they made us feel like we were old friends. We were a little late, but only about a third of the guests had arrived so far. Oliver and I made the rounds together, with him introducing me to executives from the studio and their spouses. I thought that I had been so clever about covering up the ring, but almost every woman that I met took my left hand and, while it may have been my imagination, it seemed like she was feeling for the ring. We had met about half the people when someone said from behind me, "Is that Miss Ramsey?" I turned around and recognized the face from my past. "Mrs. Vincent, it's so nice to see you again. I'm surprised and flattered that you remember me, Miss Ramsey. It has been a long time. This is my husband, Hal. I'm pleased to meet you, Miss Ramsey. May I call you Crystal?" "Of course. Please do. And you must call me Hal, and my wife is Gail." Thank you. Do you know Oliver Adams? Yes, we've met a couple of times. Hello, Oliver. Hi, Mr. Vincent. Hello, Mrs. Vincent. Hal and Gail, please. We're all friends here. Okay, Hal. Crystal, Mrs. Vincent began, I've been amazed with how quickly your star has risen. Congratulations. Thank you, Gail. I've been very lucky. No such thing, you're extremely talented. Luck can possibly get you an Academy nomination for a Best Supporting, but won't get you two Best Actress nominations in a row. I wish that I had followed Gail's advice a few years ago, Mr. Vincent said. She told me about meeting you when you came to look at a living room set, and that she thought that you really had something special. I did call Paul Daniels, but he wasn't interested in the small parts that I had to offer. I wish now that we had been able to find something and that I had signed you to a 5-year contract. If you ever tire of working on the big screen, I hope that you'll let me know. I'm sure that we can come up with a vehicle that will suit your talents. Thank you, Hal. My schedule is a little full right now, but I'll keep your offer in mind. Crystal has signed to 3 movies in a row, Oliver said, without a break. I wanted her to do another guest appearance on my show, but it doesn't look like it will happen for a while. 3 lead roles? Mrs. Vincent said. When I nodded, she said, My dear, I wish that I still had energy like that. What kind of parts are they? The first is an action-adventure type, a sunken treasure hunt in the Caribbean, the second is a comedy-adventure set in Europe, and the third is a romance film set in Victorian period Virginia. I've noticed that you change film types with every picture, Mr. Vincent said. Yes, it's the easiest way to avoid being typecast. But you don't do many straight dramatic roles. It may seem that way, but I just finished Weep for the Lonely Hearts, and that's a straight dramatic role. Morning Mist, Under the Scarlet Maple, and the 2 Open Spaces movies would have to be categorized as dramatic roles, although Under the Scarlet Maple is a romantic drama. Mr. Vincent nodded. You're right. I guess that I was tending to focus on your other movies. The comedy set in Mexico, the Outer Space movie, and the Princess to the Mob were all talked about a lot more at the network. In fact, there's been talk of doing a television series based on the Princess movie. It would be sort of like the old Fugitive series done back in the black and white days, except that it's not the police almost catching the main character every week. Would you be interested in starring in such a series? Thank you, but no. I couldn't see wearing that phony nose and chin all week for 20+ weeks a year. I thought that the itching would drive me crazy on the movie set. Okay, how about a Moons of Capacia spin-off if the movie deal falls through? What movie deal? You haven't heard? The producer is negotiating for the rights to the sequel. If that falls through, the author has promised to talk to us first about a series. I hadn't heard. Maybe they want somebody else for the lead, or perhaps the sequel deals with another character in the story. Not from what I understand. The main character is the same and it picks up from where the last one left off. The book title is With Love from All of Me. Of course they don't have the movie rights yet, and then they'd still have to get the screenplay written. The SP could take months to prepare depending on how the book is written. I shrugged. I guess that it doesn't really matter. I'm busy for the next 15 months anyway. That would leave you free just in time to start work on a series to be ready for the new season a year from now. I laughed. I'll think about it, Hal. I can't promise any more than that right now. Oliver and I moved along to other guests after that. More were arriving now that it was growing later. I hadn't had any real contact with studio executives during the time when I made the episodes for Oliver's first series, so I didn't know anyone, but Oliver at least knew who most of them were. I received at least a dozen offers to help me get a series, and I thanked them after telling them that I wasn't available for more than a year. At midnight, everyone hooped, yelled, or cheered and then got down to some serious drinking. Both Oliver and I stuck with bottled water and excused ourselves about 1 a.m. after thanking our hosts. It was almost 3 by the time that we got back to the house. I couldn't see Oliver driving back to his house tonight, so I invited him to stay over, in a spare bedroom. He accepted and took a small overnight case from the trunk of the car. "I see that you were all prepared," I said. "I always keep a small bag in the trunk with pajamas, clean underwear, and a shaving kit. Just in case I break down someplace. Of course, my cars are a little more dependable these days, but they say that old habits die hard." Was all that I said as I nodded and looked at him sideways. The downstairs of the house was dark except for the stair and hallway floor lighting that stayed on from sunset to dawn. When your eyes were used to the dark, the tiny wattage bulbs provided more than enough light to see and move about the house easily. I showed Oliver to an empty bedroom and checked to make sure that he had enough towels. I said goodnight, but he wasn't ready to let me leave that easily. He took my arm as I walked towards the door, and pulled me to him, then gave me a long goodnight kiss, several times. I guess that he wanted to make up for not being able to kiss me when he arrived. He tried to maneuver me towards the bed, but I wouldn't budge in that direction. Finally he said, "Stay with me." "I can't. You're wearing my engagement ring. This isn't a one-night thing. I'm looking for a long-term commitment. I want to spend the rest of my life with you." "We're not engaged, Oliver. I'm only wearing the ring because I don't want to damage it to remove it. I'll give it back in a few days." "I don't want it back. I want you to keep it and wear it. I want other men to know that you're promised to me until you're ready for marriage. I don't even want to think about marriage right now." He smiled and said jokingly, "Okay, let's just have sex." I giggled. No sex either. Now be a good boy and go to bed." "Let's go to bed." "I promise no sex. Just kissing and hugging." "We're going to bed, but you're going to your bed and I'm going to mine. Good night." I finally disentangled myself from his embrace, slipped out the door, and walked to my room. I slept until after 11 a.m. Mom and Aunt Jess were up when I went down, but Carol hadn't made an appearance yet. She had gone to a party at her friend Jackie's house and not gotten in until after me according to the security log, Mom said. Mrs. McGuire made a couple of eggs for me as I drank a glass of OJ. I had finished eating by the time that Oliver came down. He said good morning to Mom and Aunt Jess and then kissed me on the cheek and said, "Good morning, dear," to me. As he took a seat, I asked him what he wanted for breakfast. When he had decided, I went into the kitchen, returning with his eggs, bacon, and toast when it was ready. We told Mom and Aunt Jess about the party while Oliver ate. I did most of the talking, so it didn't really interrupt his breakfast. I told Mom about meeting Mrs. Vincent and her husband there and about everything that they had said. "A new Feminized story is going to be made?" Mom said. "Yes, but it's not called A Moons of Capacia too. It's going to be called something like With Love, from All of Me." The new novel continues on where the other one left off. "That's a funny title," Aunt Jess said. "It's science fiction, so it could mean a lot of things. I wonder who the director will be if they get the rights to make it." "I'm more interested in who gets the lead," Mom said. "It has to be Crystal, unless she turns it down," Aunt Jess said. "They might go with someone else to save money. I'm getting a lot more money now than I was back then." "But you're also a bigger name now and that's valuable," Mom said. "They made a ton of money on the last one, and that was only the box office. They're still getting money from video distribution, and television will pay off big when it gets there." I guess that we'll see. I thought that you were going to consider doing a series on television, Oliver said. Right now I'm trying to take advantage of the movie work while it's being offered. I enjoy the variety of different roles. With television I'd be doing the same role for 5 or more years if the series is successful. With a 1-hour show, and your popularity, you could get $500,000 per episode. That's only 12 or 13 million for 7 or 8 months' work. I'm getting 15 for 3 months' work in Europe this summer. You're getting 15 per picture now? Oliver said. That's what Mr. Daniels has been negotiating for me. Damn, I only get 100,000 per episode. That's $2.5 million for 7 months' work. If your series continues to be successful, you'll make a lot more with your next contract.
Yeah,
but it's not 15 million. How much did you make 3 years ago, for the entire year? $8,000. $2.5 million for 7 months' work is a pretty good increase. You can even afford to get a nicer house now. I've been looking. There's a great house in Malibu that I like. It's $4 million plus, but it has a spectacular view of the ocean. It's nothing like this palace, but it has 6 bedrooms and 7 baths in 5,000 plus square feet on 2.5 acres. Sound wonderful, Oliver, I said. Have you tendered an offer? Not yet. I just looked at it a week ago and I had to work on my finances. I have enough to put about a third down. It's a lot more than I was looking to spend, but it's a great house and it has a 42-foot pool in the backyard. Oh, and the backyard faces the ocean. Is it on the beach? No, it's up the cliffs. The beachfront houses are small, have almost no land, and cost twice as much. You'll be a lot closer than you are now, if you move, I said. Yes, I'll only be about 45 minutes away instead of an hour and 20 minutes. It's still quite a ways though, and I'll be commuting to the studio instead of just being able to jog over, but the area is much nicer. It sounds really great. Good luck. Thanks, honey. Please subscribe for the next part and visit my Patreon page for early access. Link in the comment, thanks.